Have you ever noticed something strange? Some people can sit through an entire championship game and feel absolutely nothing. While everyone else is celebrating, arguing, or glued to the screen, they're quietly making dinner, reading a book, working on a project, or simply enjoying the silence. At first, that can seem unusual. People might even ask them, "Wait, you don't watch sports at all?" As if that's impossible. But here's what's interesting. Not obsessing over sports doesn't automatically make someone boring, antisocial, or disconnected. In fact, psychology suggests it can reveal something surprisingly different about how a person's mind works. And one reason in particular tends to surprise almost everyone. Think about this. Imagine your friends are passionately debating which team deserves to win. The conversation gets louder, someone is frustrated, someone else is celebrating. Meanwhile, one person just smiles, takes a sip of their drink, and changes the topic. They're not pretending. They genuinely don't feel emotionally invested. Why? Because their brain isn't attaching part of their identity to the outcome. That's something psychologists call identity fusion. When people strongly identify with a group, whether it's a sports team, a company, or even a favorite brand, the group's victories start feeling personal. A win feels like your own success. A loss feels strangely painful. It's one of the reasons sports can create such powerful emotions. But people who don't obsess over sports often build their identity somewhere else, maybe through their creativity, their work, their family, learning new things, or simply becoming the person they want to be. Instead of asking, "Did my team win today?" their mind quietly asks, "Did I become a little better today?" Now, that doesn't mean one way is better than the other. Sports bring people together. They create unforgettable memories. They give millions of people a sense of belonging. That's something deeply human. But some people naturally search for that same feeling somewhere different. Here's another thing most people never notice. People who don't obsess over sports often have a different relationship with competition. They don't necessarily dislike competition. They just prefer competing against themselves, finishing a difficult project, learning a new skill, running a little farther than last week, reading one more chapter before bed. Their scoreboard is private. Nobody else even sees it. And oddly enough, that invisible competition can become just as exciting, sometimes even more. Now here's where it gets really interesting. Our brains have limited attention. Every day, we're constantly deciding what deserves a piece of it. Some people happily spend hours analyzing player statistics, trade rumors, and match predictions. Others spend those same hours learning a language, building a business, practicing music, or simply doing absolutely nothing for a while. Neither choice is automatically smarter. They're just different investments of attention. And attention is one of the most valuable things we own. There's also something else happening beneath the surface. Humans naturally look for communities. For thousands of years, belonging meant survival. That's why sports fandom feels so rewarding. Shared colors, shared chants, shared emotions. It creates instant connection. But people who aren't interested in sports usually satisfy that same psychological need somewhere else. Maybe they connect through books, technology, art, gaming, travel, fitness, science, or conversations that stretch late into the night. The need for belonging never disappears. It simply changes its address. Here's a funny little moment you might recognize. Someone asks, "Did you watch the game last night?" And the response is, "What game?" The room suddenly goes quiet for a second, not because anyone is offended, but because people sometimes forget that not everyone experiences excitement the same way, and that's completely normal. Another fascinating difference is emotional energy. Sports are emotional roller coasters. One minute you're celebrating, the next minute you're frustrated. Your mood rises and falls with something you can't control. Some people absolutely love that feeling. Others don't enjoy giving that much emotional control to outside events. They'd rather keep their emotional energy for things they can actually influence: their relationships, their health, their personal goals. That doesn't mean they're emotionless, far from it. They're just selective about where those emotions go. There's also a common misunderstanding. People often assume that if someone doesn't care about sports, they must hate sports. That's usually not true. Many simply feel neutral. It's the same way you might feel about a hobby you've never picked up. You don't dislike it. It just doesn't pull your attention. And attention can't be forced. One of the biggest reasons this happens comes down to personality. Research has shown that people naturally differ in what stimulates their curiosity. Some brains light up around competition and fast-paced action. Others become fascinated by ideas, patterns, people, stories, or solving complex problems. The reward system is still working, it's just rewarding something different. Here's something worth thinking about. Imagine two people each have 3 free hours. One spends it watching a match they've been waiting weeks to see. The other spends it building furniture in a garage, or writing music, or learning astronomy. Who's using their time better? The answer is neither, because fulfillment isn't measured by what everyone else values. It's measured by what genuinely brings your own mind alive. And maybe that's the biggest lesson here. We often assume that if millions of people love something, everyone should. But human psychology has never worked that way. Our brains are wired differently. Our experiences shape different interests. Our identities grow in different directions. The world would be incredibly boring if every conversation, every passion, and every dream looked exactly the same. So if you've ever felt like the odd one out because everyone around you was obsessed with sports while you simply weren't, there's probably nothing wrong with you. Your mind may just be chasing excitement in a completely different place. Because the most interesting thing about human psychology isn't that we're all different. It's that every difference quietly reveals what matters most to us. And sometimes, the loudest crowd in the room tells you less about a person than the quiet thing they choose to care about instead.